Good evening, everyone. Wonderful to have you all here for this lovely event on generosity, and we're delighted to have Nipun here with us this evening. My name is Mark Williamson. I suspect most of you will have know something about Action for Happiness and maybe been to one of our events before, but I'm just going to spend a few minutes telling you a little bit about what it is we do before then introducing our wonderful speaker this evening. So tonight's theme is how kind acts can change the world and change us. And I think it's useful actually just to sort of reflect on what does Action for Happiness mean and exists for, and how does that link into tonight's theme. So most of you might know that we are creating a movement, bringing people together from many walks of life that are passionate about this idea of creating a happier society, putting the things that really matter first. We launched only sort of 18 months ago and have been blown away by the support and enthusiasm that we've had from you and many others around the country and around the world. It's still very early days and still lots to do, but we've got an online and sort of community of members now that is over 50,000 in number, covers many different countries, although the vast majority are still here where we started. And that's been a wonderful journey. But I was thinking about, ahead of tonight's event, some of the founding principles that were behind the ideas of what we're doing and how that's translated into communities and schools and other activities. And many of you may know that the founders behind Action for Happiness include Richard Layard, who's a famous economist who's been championing this whole agenda for many years, and people like Anthony Seldon, who's introducing happiness into schools. And when we sat down at the start of this journey, we thought, what are the key principles behind Action for Happiness? And I just thought I'd revisit them with you now, because they sort of link very much into tonight's theme. So our members, as many of you know, when they sign up, say that I will try to create more happiness and less unhappiness in the world around. That means campaigning for change and pushing for leaders to change and organisations to change, but it also means that each of us can play a part in creating that society we'd all like to be part of. And so the three beliefs we came up with when we thought about this idea was that, first of all, we can all affect our happiness and indeed the happiness of others around us. We're not just at the mercy of our circumstances and our genes. There are things that each of us can do to boost our well-being and indeed to make an impact on others around us. So that's vital. We are able to make a difference here. Secondly, we should be prioritising the things that really lead to happy and fulfilling lives. And there's sort of different levels to that. We obviously want our leaders, our government and our organisations to put the things that matter first. And of course it's great that the government is now starting to measure well-being as well as economic measures. But it actually also means that we as individuals need to prioritise the things that matter. Our families, our communities, our mental health, our sense of meaning and purpose in lives. All these things that we know are probably a lot more important than what we earn and what we own in our lives. But finally, and I think most importantly for tonight, the fundamental idea with Action for Happiness is that helping others, other people's happiness, if you like, is at the heart of this. It's vital for a happier life for ourselves, and when we do things for others, it's great for our own sense of well-being and fulfilment. But it's also crucial to creating that happier society where we're more connected, more collaborative, more caring, and genuinely happier as a result. So I think that leads us on beautifully to tonight's theme, and I think Nipun will give us a whole new perspective on what it means to think about contributing rather than consuming, and really turn our model of modern society a little bit on its head, but in a very constructive way. Just finally, before I introduce Nipun and share a little video to set the scene, just a few events we've got coming up that you might be interested in. Obviously this evening we're talking about generosity. In a few weeks' time we've got Andy Gibson here from Mind Apples doing Your Mind, a User's Guide, which is a wonderful look at how do our brains work and how do we get the best out of our minds. And in November we've got Leo Bormans, who wrote this wonderful World Book of Happiness from the latest researchers all around the world and bringing together many wonderful ideas there. So he's joining us in November. And coming up between those things, at the bottom here, is this amazing festival we've been part of putting on, happening down in Devon, the Interrogate Festival at Dartington. And I know some of you are already planning to be there, but we'd be delighted if you were there. We're for an amazing array of speakers and drama and art and various other creative activities alongside serious debate and a lot of fun as well. So do join us there if you can get to Devon. So, finally, do please, if you don't know more about Action for Happiness and would like to get involved, then please do join our communities and find out more. It's been wonderful to have your support, and we so appreciate the generosity that you all show by making donations to come here, and we're passionate about this idea of donating to be at an event rather than having a fixed amount. We want this to be accessible to everyone. So let me turn to Nipun and tonight's talk. I'm so delighted he could be here, and I met him for the first time last night, having been a long-time admirer of his work and seeing his talks, and various other initiatives. And we're going to hear about some of his very inspiring projects that he and the team have been involved with. I think you'll have all read about his background, but really the journey Nipun has been on is wonderful, and I think inspiring both in terms of social change, but also in terms of personal change. And I think we're going to hear about both aspects of that this evening. But the best way, I think, to introduce this evening's speaker is to show you this little video, which I think really brings home the kind of context of what we're talking about here. So let me share with this little preview of Nipun's talk this evening.
When you do a small act of kindness, you usually don't get an immediate feedback. But if you stick with it long enough, then you start to see that there's these little circles of goodness that happen. And we started to see that within our community of friends, where I would do something small for someone else, and lo and behold, somebody else would do something for me, and it was unrelated. It's just that we were all just practicing kindness in that way. I like it. I like it. There were these feedback loops of people just connecting with each other through kindness. And maybe this is what they meant by the gift economy, And we tried different experiments. So then we said, how far can we push the bounds, So we started a restaurant. It's in various cities now.
Karma Kitchen is a pay-it-forward gift economy restaurant. So what that means is guests come in, and they're served a meal, but at the end of the meal they get a check that says $0, and they're basically asked to pay forward their meal for the next guest to keep the circle of giving going.
The gift economy is a shift from consumption to contribution, from transaction to trust, from scarcity to abundance, and isolation to community. Amen.
It really shifts one's orientation from sort of a me kind of orientation to a we orientation. Basically, you're sitting at this restaurant, you're served this meal, and you know that somebody else has actually paid for that meal, and also there's volunteers involved in serving it to you. So it's not just, here is my food and I'm paying for it as a transaction, but it's really a community of people have come together to really provide this for me as a gift.
You feel like it's more than just going out to a restaurant and having a meal and eating your food. It's something that you're participating in more actively. And when you're there eating, you're doing more than just consuming, you're actually being part of a community.
Oftentimes people leave in tears. They're just so blown away by the generosity and the kindness that others are showing, and they're taking that spirit and living their lives and doing things according to that spirit.
It creates a whole different dynamic, and that dynamic is subtle and hard to capture, so we sometimes lose it altogether. But it actually can be very valuable to our human experience. And so honoring that is the biggest deal. So you go to a space like Karma Kitchen and you say, well, what's the big deal? I get a meal here, I have to pay, I would pay elsewhere too. But here, you're actually realizing that somebody before you whom you don't know has, in this case very literally, paid for the rent for this week. And that has allowed you to have this meal as a gift. And now the person who is in front of you is volunteering to serve you a meal, and this is a person you don't know. And they could be out watching a movie. Instead, they're here, right, serving you, and washing your plates, and bussing your tables. Why? And then you say at the end of your meal, this is all a gift. And I get to pay forward for somebody after me. I don't even know them. They'll never be able to say thank you to me. Would I do that? Why would I do that? And then how much would I leave for them? What is something worth to you? We are so conditioned by our dominant paradigm to confuse price and value. We usually think price equals value. Is that really so?
We just had one meal between the two of us, and I paid, $20, and I consider that cheap because it was the pleasure and joy of being here. It's the real experience.
If everything is rooted in gift, it requires a quality of consciousness that all its people have to be rooted in. Where people say, oh, I received something. I didn't just get lucky if I found a $100 bill. Right? It's not just free stuff. There's no stuff to gain. It's actually that I want to look at every door and say, what can I contribute? Instead of saying how much can I consume, you're saying how can I contribute. That shift, you need a population that is rooted in that shift. Once you have that population, that ecosystem will give birth to designs and systems that will have a thriving gift economy.
All these people are volunteering because they feel that this space and what we're trying to do here is a very meaningful thing, and we're happy to have you all as part of that experiment and that wonderful family feel. So thank you all.
The question is, if many people start doing that, what will the world look like? I don't think we know the answer to that, but it's worth finding out.
Research engineer at Lawrence Livermore National Lab, and the place I work is like weapons and nuclear things, and it's like all bad karmas you can imagine. I gotta come Sundays, every Sundays, I gotta cleanse myself and come to Karma Kitchen, to get.
And it's not about how much you have or how little you have. It's not about the things anymore. It really comes down to something far subtler, which is within you, which is love, for lack of a better word.
Please join me in welcoming Nipun Mehta.